Hello, hello, hello. Crafty Chris here for another Scrap Your Scraps Thursday night. Tonight we're going to be making a four-fold card, and we're going to be using up our scrap. Um, well, they're not really scraps, but they're 6x6. What do they call them? Journal cards. Sometimes journal cards are just pretty cards. Other times they have spots for you to write in. Sometimes you can use them for mats. But grab whatever you have in terms of coordinating journal cards, and we're going to use those cards as mats and as decorative pieces to create our four-fold cards. So here, oh, things are not sticking. My demo. There we go. So here is the four-fold card. Say that fast 4 times. All right, so I'm going to walk through this with you. The first thing I'm going to do is dismantle this card so that you can see the components. So we have upper layers, which are the decorative pieces on our card, and those are going to be the ones that you want to have with some kind of image or some kind of saying or something. Okay, so we have 5 of those actually. So we have 2 that are 2 1/4 by 3 3/4, 2 that are 3 by 4 1/2, and 3 4 1/2, and then our final one is 3 by 5. So these are your layers, and I've labeled them according to size. So you've got 2 layer 1s, 1A and 1B, 2 layer 2s, 2A and 2B, and then a layer 3. Okay, that's the very top surface of this card. So if you see it flat now. So now I'm going to show you the mats. So this is your pattern paper, or I'm hoping you'll use your 6x6 cards to create this, so you can use those up. And I am going to lay everything out so you can take a screenshot or something of it as we walk through it. Now we have the same going on with mats, except they're slightly bigger. So we have a 1A and a 1B mat that are 2 1/2 by 4. We have a 2A and a 2B mat that are 3 1/4 by 4 and 3/4. And then we have our final mat, which is 4 by 5 1/4. So, and then we have our base, and I'll walk you through the actual base. So what I'd like you to take a minute, pause the camera, and I want you to go through and create your mats. So the first thing you're going to do is create the mats, and I'm going to pull my camera down so you can see the measurements. So take a screenshot or just freeze on this screen, and you're going to choose mats from your collection that are just patterned paper basically, okay, but that coordinate in the colors that you want to use. So you're going to cut those mats according to this schedule. So 1A is 2.5 times 4, 1B is 2.5 times 4. Maybe I'll make that a little more obvious so when you screenshot it you don't see my mistake there. 2.5 times 4. Mat 2A, sorry, let's get that in order, is 3.25 times 4.25, and mat 2B is 3.25 times 4. Okay, whoa. Let's start that again. So mat 1A, 2.5 times 4. 1B, 2.5 times 4. 2A, 3.25 times 4.75. 2B, 3.25 times 4.75. And mat 3 is 4 times, and I'm going to write this nice and neat and tidy, 5.25. Okay, I'm just going to double check that because I want to make sure I'm absolutely accurate. 5.25 for that one. Okay, so there is your mats. That's what you need to cut from the more patterny type 4x6 journal cards you have with, you know, the overall pattern on them. Okay, so you're going to cut those. Now, when you're done with that, you're just going to put them in a nice little neat pile according to size. Okay, off to one side. And then you're going to freeze frame again with the upper layers. And I'm going to put those upper layers out right now. So we have 4.25 by 3.75 for layer 1A. And then layer 1B is the same, 4.25 by 3.75. Layer 2A is 3 by 4.5. Layer 2B is 3 times 4.25. And the final layer is layer 3, which is 3.75 times 5. Now, again, I'm just going to tidy this up so there's no mistakes. Now, another thing you could do to keep this as your sort of go-to pattern is to create this like I did, just using white paper, cheap white paper, and then you can have it in your file folder of things of cards to recreate. So these are not going to be made out of your more plain pattern. You're going to go and look for things that are a little more interesting. This is a little too big because the words will not fit on the paper. This might fit with a little bit of the flower, so you want to make sure you get the words on there, and then a little bit of the flower will show. So just looking through and using those papers that are not pattern backgrounds, that have more of a focal point to them. That would be a pretty one to cut for a top layer, or something like this you could cut for a top layer, and you know, making things interesting. So looking through and avoiding the background pieces that we did for the backgrounds, and trying to find something that's a little more focal pointy, if that's a word. So these are, I consider backgrounds because they're fairly consistently colored on both sides. These I consider foregrounds because they have elements that are focal points on them. Okay, so you're going to get your focal points and you're going to cut these layers. So put this on pause and make those cuts. All right, moving on. So now that you've got those cuts created, you're going to just stack each of those on by size. So you have your mats here, you have your layers here, and now we're going to create the actual mechanism, which is the background. It's going to be 5.5 inches in height and 11.5 inches in width. This piece is an add-on piece. So 11.5 inches will include this 1/2 inch tab or 1/4 inch tab that goes underneath. So you're going to be 11.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. So you're going to cut your first strip that. So I'm going to cut this to 11.5 inches. Whoop. There we go. All right. So this is 5.5 by 11.5 inches long. So if you're doing this as a dummy card first, you're going to put that measurement on there. Okay. Then we're going to cut our 2 3/4 by 4 3/4 piece out of the same paper. My suggestion would be to keep the smallest cut so you still have a piece you can use afterwards. So we're going to go by the 2 3/4. Whoops, you can't see that because I got my hand on it. We're going to do the 2 3/4 cut first for the full length, and then we're going to cut it off at 4 1/4. So 2 3/4 is here. Okay, this piece is still good for me to use. If you're using scrap, you may not need it. And it's 4 1/4 tall. 4 1/4 tall. All right. This piece goes into your stash. So we have our 5 1/2 by 11 1/2 here, and our 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 inch piece here. And you can put your big cutter away because you're not going to need it anymore. And you're going to pull out your embossing or your scoreboard. So let me just write this here. So that was 5.5 inches, 4 inches, 5.5 inches. So 11 to here, 5.5 here. We'll make these cuts in score lines in a moment. And then 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 there. So this one I'm just going to add to my pile over to the left hand side that I've been collecting all my stuff. And I'm going to get my scoreboard out now. So I'm going to put my paper in my scoreboard, and the first score that I'm going to make, I'll show you the back side here, is this little 1/4 inch score. So I'm going to grab this. Now I have a hard time getting my 1/4 inch score in here because there's nowhere to hold my paper. So I'm going to start my 1/4 inch over here, but then I'm going to rotate it back so I make sure that I put my scores in the right place. So I'm going to make my score at 11 1/4 rather than that 1/4 inch at the other side. So now I'm going to make a turn of 180, so my 1/4 inch is over here, and I am going to make my next, starting at the end there where that 1/4 inch was, I'm going to make my next score line at 3 3/4. So I'm going to put write that on my master here, and I'm going to go over to my 3 3/4 right here and do my score. And my next score, starting at the beginning again where that 1/4 inch is going to be at 7 1/4. All right, 7 1/4. So I'm going to write that in on my master, 7 1/4. So I know where my lines are now on my master. And I'm going to take my score tool, go to 7 1/4, and draw my line. Now when you're doing your scoring, it's always a good idea to score 3 light times, then 1 really deep and heavy time. The reason is you don't want to cut through the paper. Okay, now we are going to rotate our paper so that our 1/4 inch is at the top, and we are going to do 5/8 of an inch down, and this is going to give us our line for cutting here. We don't have to cut this line because our piece is being added here, but we have to cut this little chunk out. So imagine that this is the end of our piece of paper, okay, and we are going to cut, we are going to score 5/8 of an inch from the left side. I did this doing it on the left side because it's still tight to kind of get that score in this corner. So we're going to go in 5/8 of an inch and down, but we're not going to go all the way down. We're just going to go down to our 7 1/4 score line. Okay, so we're doing 5/8 of an inch. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 of an inch, and we're just going down to that 7 1/4 line. Okay, making a nice line there. So I am going to put a notation here that this is 5/8 of an inch that we cut away. Okay. All right, so now let's do our trim. So we are going to trim this piece all the way out. So let me see if I can draw the line there so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll get this out of my scoreboard for a minute so you can see the line I am trying to make here. So it's visible to you. I got a lot of lights going in a lot of directions, so it's hard for me to see exactly. There we go. So this I'm taking out. Okay, I'm taking that section out from that 7 1/4 up to the 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take my scissors, and in the middle of that score line I'm going to cut up to the score line at the 7 1/4 inch place. And now I'm going to cut, actually I should use my bigger scissors so that I can get more accuracy. You can do this if you have one of those cutting boards that allows you to cut midway. There we go. Okay, so there I am with my finished card. I shouldn't have put pen on there, but I did. And now we're going to fold in the accordion style. So if you look at my card here, we are doing a valley fold first, and then a mountain fold, and then another valley fold. So valley fold first, and try to make sure you line up on the bottom. Valley fold first, then a mountain fold, and your valley fold, your everything kind of lines up. And this little guy, we're going to add our piece that we're missing, and yes, it's shorter than what you have here, but we're going to fold this over first, and you're going to put some tape there. And we're using tape or glue because this is going to get a little bit of wear and tear. So in my case, I'm using tape. I'm going to turn it around because it's easier for me to see. And I'm just going to put my tape along that 1/4 inch piece. Okay, and pull it off. Whoop, if I can get the corner there. There we go. And this, I'm going to open it up for ease of use with the tape up and my card to the left, and I'm going to line up my card with the fold and just adhere it like that. Now I'm going to trim out this little piece that has tape left on it. So I'm just going to go right to the fold line on that and cut down the fold line. And sometimes you need to go back and forth to get it off. There we go. So here now is my finished card. Fold it up. Okay, this is our 4 folds. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the rest can go into your scrap or your garbage. Alright, so now we're going to decorate. Let's make sure this is nice and tightly folded. So make your bone folder do the work for you. Nice and flat. And we are going to look at our mats first. So let's get our mats. We're going to take those mats. I have my mats here. And we are going to start adhering them. And you're adhering them centered to the page. And this you can just use regular adhesive. There we go. Regular adhesive on these because they don't take any stress. So mat 1A is going to go on the outside, centered. Like so. And then mat 1B is going to go on the inside. Okay, I just happen to be using the same matte color because I could get that many out of that mat. That's 6x6 mat. Whoops, let's make sure that, of course, I've got the decorating. I wanted to have, no, I did it right. I decide on how you want your pattern to lie, whether you want it straight up and down or and make sure that if you're using the same paper, you're going in the same direction for both mats. There we go. And then I'm going to go for 2A. And again, I'm going to put that central. Now this seems just a little long. What have I got that measured at? 4 3/4, but I'm over a bit. And what have I got this measured at? Okay, I need to trim mine. It's a little bit big. So give me one quick second to adjust. And as you go along, if you need to make adjustments, there's no harm in it. There we go. Sometimes changing from one cutter to another cutter during your cutting can cause there to be a difference depending on how accurate your cutters are. And there we go. So there's my 2A. Now I'm going to flip over and I'm going to put my 2B, which is a totally different one. And that's going to go in there like that. There's my 2B. And then my 3. I've chosen a totally different color as well, and I did not cut this one properly. That says 4 inches for the mat. What did I say on the mat? 4 inches wide. 3 3/4 inches. Let me check my other. Yes, I made something off here. But this was supposed to be 11 inches. Did I cut this wrong? I think I cut this by 10. If you were listening, you would have done the right thing. Yeah, I'm short. 10 3/4. So I cut my my mat a little short, which is fine because I'm just going to add some on to the end. You can always fix things. And I'm going to use some it's not invisible necessarily, but it won't show as color. So I'm just going to fix my problem. So sometimes it's good when I don't do everything completely right, so you get to see how to fix an issue. There we go. And now I'm going to cut this properly using my big cutter. Bear with me. I need 11 inches, so I need to know what my 11 inches are. Interesting. I'm going to turn it upside down so that I don't have to cut that first. So 11.5 inches. It's not very much, but it's enough to make a difference. There we go. I've got that trimmed off. Okay. And now I'm just going to trim this little piece here. There, now we're back in business. So I don't really see that. You see it more on camera because the different lighting coming in different directions. And now my piece is going to fit on there fine. It's still a little bit big. So I'm just going to cut this and trim it slightly smaller so that I can make sure that it all goes together nicely. And I just need to find my small cutter. Because I do want it to look like it's supposed to be there. Let's see if this helps. A little bit more. If you followed the measurements that I gave you, you will be fine. Just make sure you're cutting accurately, not like me. Alrighty. Okay, so now we're gonna stick this down. We're back in action here. And there we go. Whoop. Wiggle that around a little. Okay, and there we are. Alrighty. So that is all of our mats. We're going to close it up again, and when you close it up, you should have a 1/2 inch there and a 1/2 inch there, more or less. Probably a little more than a 1/2 inch. And now that's our mats. We've done all of our mats. So now we are going to do our layers, and we're starting with our layer. Okay, so I have pre-cut mine, and hopefully yours are cut too. So now this is just simply going to get centered on top of that, on top of the mat. So this is layer 1A, going down, getting centered. There we go. Flip that over, layer 1B. There we go. Centering that. Okay. Layer 2A. There we go. Layer 2B. All right, and I picked for my last layer one that had a lot of white in it, because this is where I'm going to stamp my sentiment or pop my sentiment. This card is rather thick, and if you're putting it in the mail, you don't want to put any 3D stuff on it, so I'm going to probably stamp directly on my card. I just want to make sure that I can get it to line up. I'm going to trim it down a little bit because, again, it's not quite right. Just to give it a little more space. Let's see how that looks. Much better. Okay. And as you can probably see, my cards have two directions. They go horizontal and vertical. Not all journaling cards have two sides. So you're going to use with whatever you have that goes vertically. All right, so there is the finished card. Isn't it pretty? Very pretty. A little bit of upsy daisies in our measurements. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one more card, and it's a card that we're going to use some clear packaging of a good weight. Nothing light and flimsy, something that had clear packaging on it of a heavy weight. Or if you have heavyweight acetate, then that's a good thing to use as well. Okay, so I'm going to trim off all the yucky stuff on this. I'm just going to take my trimmer, put it the right way around, and I'm going to trim away to see how much actual stuff I have left over. And I'm going to try and keep it as square as possible. And that's annoying. Got a little bit of a long piece there. Maybe I can avoid it. There we go. And let's see. Okay. So what I'm looking for is, my theory is going to be, this is going to be a vertical card, so I have to trim it down to the right size. But I'm going to be getting rid of all of this white stuff on either side so that it is acetate at the top and bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is fussy cut my piece. And I'm just like, you know, I don't even care if it is exactly like what the outsides of this image look like. I just want to avoid having any white along the edge there. There we go. Trim a little bit of that off. Slightly more in there off. There we go. Oh, got a little bit there to trim. There we go. Now, with your acetate, it's always a good idea to stick something on it so you don't lose it. Because it does go clear and it can get shoved underneath what you're working on. And then the next thing you know, you can't find it. So my suggestion is always to put some kind of a piece of tape on there or something that you can see, so that you can find it on your desktop if it gets shoved under something. Okay, there we go. A little bit more here. Yeah, that would be good enough. All right, get rid of these bits, or you can chop them into smaller white bits to use for later. Okay, so the first card is fairly simple. What I'm going to be doing is using this as my front plate. So a standard card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I have to make sure I have a 5 1/2 edge. And I'm trying to conserve so that I can possibly use the second piece on a second card. And I'll need less, but I want to make sure that I have enough. So this is 5 1/2, and that's 5 1/2. So I'm going to cut 5 1/2. And it just takes this little slim piece off here that I'm going to toss because it's really, well, you know what? I could keep that for a pop-up card, so I'm not going to toss that, but I am going to put something on it so I can find it later. So this is 5 1/2, so now I need to do 4 1/4. There we go. And now this is my front of my card right there. This I need to put another something sticky on it. Luckily there's two of these together so I can find that the second time. Now my beautiful, I am going to simply stick right on, do I want this? Yes, I do. Right on the edge, because this is where we're going to put our flap to control the front piece of the card. So this I am going to do glue, and I'm going to do dries clear glue. And the other thing you want to do is make sure your acetate is clean. So just give that a little wipe. And then I'm just going to put some glue on my card. Oh no, you don't want to do that. So as quick as possible, find something that will wipe that off. Oh no, now I've got glue everywhere. Everywhere, everywhere. Okay, we're going to have to get the glue eraser at the end of this. So if you do get glue on your acetate, it's okay. You just got to get it off with a piece of tape or something afterwards, which I'll show you. So I've made a mess of this, but anyway. All right, so I want my beautiful to be centered. And it's very hard to do if you have it flat down on the surface of your desk. And so basically my beautiful is in the center of my card. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure that's all pushed flat. All right, now we're going to construct the piece that's going to attach to it. This is 1/4 of an inch, and I'll double check that measurement. Yep, it's 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to make it slightly bigger so that we can fold it around the card, and we're doing our usual measurements. So I'm going to need a piece of cardstock. So we are going to cut this. We have 4 1/4. We need another 1/4 plus a 1/16. So we end up with 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 16ths. So it's 4 and 9 16ths is what we need width-wise. And the usual height of 5 1/2. Okay. Now, part of the reason why I asked you to get a heavier weight acetate or packaging acetate is because you need to balance the weight of the card so it will stand. Now, this should be, there we go. That's what we want. We want that extra little bit, which is 1/4, so 2, 4, 5 16ths more than the actual card. And we are going to now do, I'm going to do it on this side because again, so I'm going, I'm making sure that it's vertical in, and this should be at 4 and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 9 16ths. So I need to make it at 4 1/4 is what the card is. So I need to go another 1/4 over. So at 4 1/4, I'm going to make my fold. Okay, so you can see that I have more than 1/4 of an inch there, and that's where I'm going to fold. And then when I fold this, I want to make sure, first of all, that it's a nice straight fold, and then I'm embossing that edge. I want to make sure that this piece, this measurement from this piece to that is really 4 1/4, because otherwise it won't fit in the envelope. If it isn't, then I'm going to position it so that I trim off a little bit here. So I'm just going to make a quick measure. We got 4 1/4 there. Now Okay, so this is not lying flat for some reason. And this is the problem with some score bone folders, is that over time they get kind of flat and they don't give you a nice crisp fold, and you end up with it going a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. Okay, so that's now 4 1/4, and this is now 4 1/4. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so now along here I am also going to put some clear glue. And you don't need a whole heck of a lot, but you need enough to keep the corners down. Okay. And now I'm going to stick this in there and fold the edge over. Some of the glue will pop out. So there we go. I'm folding the edge over. And we will have to do some glue cleanup at the end. So now I have my beautiful stuck to my card. For the inside of the card, I'm just going to take regular lightweight cardstock. I can find a piece big enough. And I want a spot where I can do a little bit of stamping. These might be a bit too small. I don't want to have that much purple showing. Yeah, these are a bit small, so I'm going to grab myself another piece of cardstock. And for the insides, I use the I get these pocket pages for my albums, and the flimsy white cardstock that comes in it is perfect for this kind of use, because it's not strong enough to be cardstock to use on a layout or for a card. Now, let me measure what I want to do there. I want a ruler. I put all my rulers to one side, and I just had my hands on them. Okay, we'll use another ruler. So I want this to align with this edge, because this is like 1/4 inch, so I want everything to be like 1/4 inch. So from here to there, I've got to make a cut of 3 3/4 inch. So 3 3/4 inch is my small cut. All right. And I have 5 1/2 inches. I need a cord at the top and bottom, so I'm going to make a 5-inch cut. Now at this point I could round the corners, I could do something fancy if I wanted, but I don't think I will. I'm just going to put it straight in there. And at this point I am going to align that central to the inside of the card. This I can put down with just some regular tape runner. And align that up, kind of centering it all the way around. There we go. And there is your finished card. And on the inside, underneath where the beautiful is where you're going to put your sentiment. Okay? And you can add embellishments to the outside edges, maybe a few flowers in the corner. Maybe I could cut a couple of butterflies and add them in off of some of my piece cards. And let me just show you how to get the glue off. So I take a little piece of regular tape. So this is just sticky adhesive regular Scotch tape. I roll it around my finger so I don't have too much flopping around, and I can stick my finger in there and control it a bit. And I get something underneath so I can see what I'm doing. Here, put this a little bit, there we go. So wherever I see glue, I just go over it and try to pull it off. And of course you have to be doing this on the right side of your card. If the glue is on the other side of the card, you won't be getting it up from the front. And I just work my tape across it to pull the adhesive off. And it takes a little bit of work, so it's better to actually not get adhesive on it off the start, but you can clear that adhesive off by scraping lightly with your fingernail. Don't use anything sharp because it will scrape the surface. And then using your tape to get it off. I've got quite a bit here, so what I'm going to do is just run my finger down there, kind of get it removed for the most part, and then go in and pull off those little bitty bits with my tape. And I got some here. There we go. So you can get the tape and the messy stuff off your card. I was using glitter, and of course acetate does have a magnetic quality to itself. And now I'm noticing that the glitter is sticking to the back of my card, but that's okay. All right, there you go. And my stamp is going to go on the inside, and then I can pretty it up by adding some flowers and doodads and butterflies, whatever I would like. But that is your peekaboo card, your first version. Then the second version I'm going to make is using this butterfly card, and I'm literally going to cut the center section out of this card. I'm going to do it this way because I want it to be a 4x5 card. I am going to grab some more cardstock. So let's make our front plate first. So again, it's going to be 5.5 inches wide, plus I'm going to cut down the center section. So let me cut the center section out first, and then we'll go from there. Cutter, cutter, cutter. There we go. All right. So I am going to literally try to cut between the butterflies like that. And it's not easy. There we go. So this piece I'm keeping because we're going to put that below to match everything else. Now the card itself is going to have to be 4 1/4 tall. So I should have probably done that cut first. But let's see what we get. This is 4 wide, so we're going to have some space around it. Alrighty. There we go. This I'm going to use a different color. Let's go for the teal. Here we go. Yes, that's fine. So now let's do some math here and a little picture because I need visuals. So I have a card that is going to be, this is the fold at the top. Okay, I am going to have all my sections of my butterfly showing. This section is going to be acetate because this is going to be adhered on the inside. This is going to be butterflies, and this is going to be butterflies. So I need to create a piece that is 5.5 plus what this is in width. So that's going to be interesting. So my cut is going to be something like this. So this is going to be 5.5. This cut here is going to be, whoop, let's do that like that. This is going to be a full 4.25, 8.5. And then I got to take a section out, which is going to be 4.25 by, and let's see how much this is. Here's my other ruler. This is 1.25. So this gets taken out. All right, let's see if this works. So I need a piece that is 5.5 by 8.5. Let's get that going first. 5.5 by 8.5. Perfect. That works at this point. Now I'm going to score this in the middle. So this is 8.5. Oh, and I didn't put my score tool away, which is not a good thing because that's when things get lost. It's probably with the rulers that I've just put aside somewhere. I just don't know where it's gone now. Okay, so I am scoring at 4.25 to make this halfway. So we are going to use this tool. It's not very slick, so it kind of sticks to the paper, but it will work. There we go. Look at that. It's slightly bigger than it should be. That's okay. We can adjust that too. All right. Making sure that we have this nicely folded. And it's a slight bit longer. So let me trim that off. That sometimes happens. I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that. Okay. Now, got to do more math. I'm going to do this on the inside. So I need to take 1.25 out from top to bottom, and it has to be centered. So this is definitely 1.25. Yep. So if I have, this is my thought process, you're getting it all today, 5.5, and I'm subtracting 1.25, that means I have 1/4 left from there, and I have 4.25, but then I have to split that, so that's 2 1/8. So I got to go 2 1/8 from one side, 2 1/8 from the other side, and it should all add up to 1.25 in the middle. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So let's see how we do here. So 2 1/8 would be here, and I'm gonna, oh, let's go back up here. 2 1/8 is there, and I'm going 1, 2 1/8 here. I'm going to do that same measurement down at the bottom. 2 1/8 is here, and 1, 2 1/8 is here. Now, here's the test of time. Let's see if this fits in between those dots. It does! Awesome! Okay, so we're good. So now all we have to do is get our cutter that allows us to cut into something. And so we can get straight lines, we are going to line up our cutter And I think I'm going to turn it around this way so I can go up from the bottom and actually see better what I'm doing. So I'm lining up my blade, and I'm going to go up to my fold line and no further. And I'm lining up my blade again, and I'm going up to my fold line and no further. And then I'm now going to cut this. I think I'll do that part with scissors. Yes, because that seems just a little easier. I'm just going to cut this off with scissors because I don't want to make a huge mistake. So there we go. So there's our card with the missing section. Okay, now with any luck, on our leftover piece, this little piece is not big enough, obviously. You can see it there. It's just like a less than a half an inch. But this piece is going to work wonderfully. And I'm going to trim the length, but I'm not going to trim the sides. I want to have it stick nicely onto the paper. And we're going to do that on the inside. So need to go in about a ½ inch. So I'm just going to line this up, make sure I get it stuck in there properly. So I'm just pushing it up to the top of the card and eyeballing its alignment here. And I'm just going to do a little scrape line with my pin to help me make sure that I've got the glue within the right area. I don't want to make a pen mark, but if you can see my scrape marks there, see, that's just giving me an eyeball so I can put my glue on more or less in those areas. And I do want to really make sure that it's stuck down well, but I don't want too much glue. Because as we know, with the glue comes some messes. All right, now here we go. We're sticking it in there, sticking it in and holding it down. Now I'm not going to push down because I can see already that I've got glue oozing out, and I have some glue on the surface which I can just scrape off with my fingernail. All right, so now we have our acetate in there. I'm going to just rub the glue away that's overflow here. It is clear glue, so it will dry clear. Alrighty, looks lovely. Now you realize that that is an open spot, but nobody will even notice that it's open because you'll have your piece inside on the inside. Alrighty, now we've got to trim that off. I prefer to use a trimmer for this. I just think it will be less of an issue to get it nice and straight if we use an actual trimmer to trim that edge. There we go. Still a nice piece of acetate to use. So I'm going to find that flag, and it's probably stuck on something already. Just put that in there. There it is, stuck on the back of something. So I'm going to stick this down there so I don't lose that. Okay, and now for our piece that's going in the center, we want to align it and make sure it has space at the top and space at the bottom so it aligns. And we're doing this piece first because then we're going to line up the other pieces on the outside. All right. So I can just use regular tape for this because it's not going to have any issue in terms of weight pulling on it. And I'm just going to do, oh, I need to move slightly to the right. No problem. My tape hasn't stuck yet. Let's see how that is. A little more to the right at the bottom here. There we go. Okay, so there's our peekaboo window there. And now we're going to figure out the measurement. We want it to, this actually comes over here, we want it to line up exactly with the edge, but we're going to take off, seems to me that this looks like 1/8 of an inch more or less. Yeah, we're going to take off 1/8 of an inch plus the remainder there. So on this one, we are going to cut off 5/16 off this side. So let me get that in, and I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5/16. There we go. And I'm going to dry fit it. Make sure it looks like it's going to work. There we go. Yeah, it looks good. And this side, I am going to take off. It could be different because if I'm not exactly accurate in everything, I'm going to take off so let's see, there's 1/8. I'm going to take off just over 3/8 of an inch on this one. So just over 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to dry fit that. Yep, might be a little too much, but that's all okay. Still looks good. Let's try this one on this side. Make sure it still looks good. So I'm just sort of dry fitting everything. Yep, all looks good. So now it's time to glue that down. And again, I'm just using tape. I'm aligning it with the original card right up to the edge of the paper. There we go. So when you look at it, it's as if it is attached. And again, doing the same thing, lining it up right with the edge of the paper, as if it's attached. So when you first look at the card, it could be just completely stuck together, but what's nice about it is you have that feature, so when you're standing it, it has some dimension to it, and you can put your sentiments on either side. You can put a bar across here with a nice sentiment. Let me find one that I would like to use. I may not have any in this card set. Might as well use the card set if I can. That's a little too big. Yeah, looks like I don't have anything that's a good size. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to use this as a pretend title. So you could have your title on there, and it sits across over that opening, and then you have your paper below it. Now another way to do this would be to have an entire sheet of paper below it, but if you're using those cards and you just have that one card, this is the way that you can give that effect without having to have multiple cards of the exact same thing. So having said that, there are your 2 acetate cards. They're kind of hard to show in terms of how they look, open and close, but there you go. And then back to our 4-fold card, which is over here that we did earlier. Alrighty, and that's it for me tonight. So if you liked what you saw tonight and you want to share it with your friends, please feel free to do so, and I will see you next week. And don't forget to like and subscribe below the video. Thank you very much. See you later.